Welcome to the DIY Goalie Podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie. Welcome back, goalies, to another episode of the DIY Goalie Podcast with your hosts Connor Monday and Nathan Park. And we are probably going to sound quite rough a little bit today as we just under 2 hours ago finished our week-long goalie camp. So we probably won't be bringing too much energy to the pod today, but you can probably hear it in our voice that we spent an hour or the last week yelling, telling kids what they need to be doing and stuff like that. So sometimes it's hard to get our voices heard across the ice. I know I'm feeling it, but it was a good week, and we had a lot of good things over the course of the week. Had a lot of fun. Bodies are a little sore, energy's a little drained, but we're here to get through part 2 of our kind of Q&A mailbag episode. So we'll do what we can and we'll have a good one today. So how's the body feeling over there, Connor?
Oh, the legs. The legs are what hurt the most, I think, out of anything. Like I don't prepare coming into this, like maybe do like I don't know, like kind of get my body back into shape maybe a little bit before I, spend 2.5 hours on the ice, give or take. No, it was a good session all in all, and we had a lot of fun with it. A lot of new goalies that we saw out here, so that was pretty cool to see. Um, and then yeah, like Nathan said, like the voice is gone. Like I was losing my voice by the first skate in the morning, so I no idea how that happened, but it is what it is, and we're back for another pod app today, so should be exciting.
So we're gonna dive right into it so we can get some R&R and decompress a little bit. And poor Connor is back at work tomorrow morning, but
Yeah.
at least the weekend shift's a little quieter. So we'll dive right into it. First off, this was from Darcy H. So the topic that he kind of wanted us to touch on was pregame prep and how to handle poor performance / mental performance. So this is something that we've kind of touched on a little bit in previous episodes. Full disclaimer, neither of us are psychologists or, full on mental professionals. That being said, we can kind of speak a little bit from experience and speak a little bit on what we've talked to professionals about and all that stuff. We actually, our classroom session today at the camp was about kind of talking about anxiety and stress and burnout and kind of, how we can cope with some of these things. Just basically, like when it comes to the nerves, the anxiety before games, pretty common. Like that sort of response from our body is perfectly natural. Like it's our body's way of kind of dealing with certain uncomfortable situations. Um, Basically, you know, nervousness and excitedness is very similar in the way that it kind of comes through in our body. So if you are anxious or nervous or a little bit kind of worried before a game, a lot of times that's a good thing to a certain extent, just because that means we're excited, we're ready to go, we care. So that's good. I do think when it comes to pregame prep, a lot of people kind of think that starts when we get to the rink. But we can be doing our pregame preparation, our pregame routine like the night before. We can start doing visualization stuff. We can start, working through kind of some of the positive self-talk or watching some highlights, listening to some music to start getting us into the zone. Eating well, sleeping well, hydrating well, all that kind of starts the day before. and then obviously carries through to the day of. So everything that we do is going to be a little bit different based off of each goalie, based off of each person. Like what works for me isn't going to work for Connor all the time. Like all of what I do isn't going to work for Connor, and that's not going to work for you and your goalie partner and all that. So you got to play around with it a little bit to see what works. The best thing I can suggest is to journal and to write down what you do the night before and the morning of, and then write down how you felt before the game, during the game, after the game, and how you played, how you performed. Um, and then just on the mental side of things, not only having a pregame routine, but having like a post goal kind of reset routine is another thing that can really help with our mental performance and our kind of in game performance. And just finding kind of some coping strategies that help you to deal with the anxiety, deal with kind of the stress and the pressure. So that could be certain breathing techniques like box breathing, or the what is it, the Wim Hof method, or I can't even remember. I never remember what it's called. But there's a few different like breathing techniques that you can just search up breathing techniques. Um, Grounding techniques like you know, doing the 5 things you can see, for you can hear or feel or whatever it is. Looking up grounding techniques, looking up breathing or breath work techniques, and then um, muscle relaxation techniques too. That was something that came up in our presentation today about this sort of stuff. So anything that you can kind of do that works for you to help get that mental reset, to help kind of calm the body's response to the anxiety and the stress. So like the heightened heart rate, kind of the more shallow rapid breathing, um, those sorts of things are going to be different for everybody. But if you can kind of figure out what works for you to deal with that sort of stuff, that's going to really help translate to a better performance on the ice. And just like I said, with pregame prep, start it earlier than you are most likely. It doesn't just start when we get to the rink. Do it at home, night before, morning of, all of that good stuff.
All right, so I had to take a brief pause here for a second. We have a special guest appearance on the pod. Future True North goaltending coach Emerson is making her podcast debut here. So
Yeah,
we
she was missing dad from being gone all week, so she needed to just be in dad's arms, hey?
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, going back to the pregame stuff here. Yeah, we've done episodes on it before. Talking about just kind of different pregame techniques, breathing exercises, and ball drills, wall drills, cognitive kind of training type stuff. Um, on top where the how to handle poor performance. I mean, there was a quote that I recall, and I recall mentioning on the pod a while ago, where nobody like if you have a bad game in 2, 3, 5 days time, nobody's really going to remember that. At the end of the day, need to understand and remember that you know you have to keep pushing forward, because if you keep focusing on what's behind you, then it's not going to help. And that's kind of where the hockey parents kind of come really really crucial into it. Your kid had a bad game. You don't, as much as you want to, for lack of a better term, lay into them and just kind of tell them everything that they did wrong. um you kind of can't. You have to be there supportive, because your kid already probably knows that they had a bad game, and that they're not, that they're probably already upset with themselves and kind of how they performed already. So it's one of those things where it's just, you know it's easier said than done. Just need to remember that in about 3 to 5 days time, nobody's really going to remember what happened in the game. Nobody's going to remember the score and everything and that such. um Top of the mental performance, I mean, again, like we've talked about that much as well, and Nathan kind of hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah, and another thing too that I brought up to the goalies in today's classroom session, um, the point of hockey is to score goals, right? Like the whole purpose of the sport is for one team to get more goals than the other team. Goals are going to happen, and we need to be okay with that. We need to go into our game understanding that most likely a goal or two is going to go in, right? Or more. So the thing is we have to be okay with that, and we have to kind of, have that goldfish memory, right? Like we can maybe make a quick mental note like, oh, okay, next time I should do this a little bit better. But after that, it doesn't really matter. The goal's already gone in. We just got to kind of move on from it, right? I think some of the goalies that are most successful are the ones that can kind of compartmentalize that and just move on from there and make make that next shot what's important and not what just happened, right? So I think
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
a good talking point too, because I think we get caught up on, oh, I can't ever let a goal in, or like, oh, I let a goal in, what did I do wrong? And it's like, you know what, it happens, and sometimes the other team makes a good play too. That's a possibility as well.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you agree? I think we agree.
Say
Um
no, dad, I sleeping.
Yeah, see.
So
Exactly.
um you got anything else, or are we gonna hop to the next one?
No, I think we can hop over to the next one. I think we've kind of covered the kind of the topics on that. I mean, again, like we've touched back on a lot more about it in previous podcast episodes, so make sure you guys check that out because
Yeah.
we've even had a few guests on that that have talked about kind of the mental kind of side of things and how to handle that. So I mean, definitely would recommend checking those out.
Yeah. So the Pete Fry episode and the Brad Wall episode are two that come to top of mind that deal with some of that mental stuff.
Yeah.
So next one we have from Chris E. Why are coaches afraid of goalies? Is it because they're weird, or because they haven't put the work in to understand them?
I can easily answer this with one sentence because coaches are a word that I can't use on pod
Yeah.
because they're scared. Like they are, and I find that yeah, like not a lot of coaches, not a lot of regular head coaches will put the work in for their goalies, which is a shame. Um, and there's that stigma that they don't care. It's like, oh, I don't know anything about goaltending, so I'm just not gonna do it. I think recent memory is showing that we are kind of seeing that shift a little bit, maybe not a lot, but definitely a little bit, in terms of head coaches getting involved and getting like a basic understanding on how the position works. I think my message to head coaches in general are, we're not asking you to do what it is that we do with the goalies. We did a whole podcast episode about having goalie friendly practices, so then that way you are inadvertently giving your goalies something to work on without going through the nitty gritty like how we do it. So I think it's a mix, honestly, of just like coaches want to learn, but there's so many resources out there that it is kind of overwhelming, or they just straight up don't care. And so I've seen both sides of the coin where I've worked with coaches who care, but they get kind of just a little bit overwhelmed, or there's just a lot going on with the position. And I've worked with coaches that just simply don't care. And uh, again, we're starting to see that switch a little bit. So hopefully maybe we'll kind of see something later on, but I think it's got to it has to start being part of the organizations as well as a whole to start implementing, like, hey, you have to, like, this is a requirement of being a head coach at this point.
Yeah. The word that I usually use is ignorance. Like they just a lot of them don't know. And some of them are scared
Mm,
of the well, no, like they don't know goaltending, right? Like
yes. Okay.
that's
Well.
more so.
Okay. All right. I'll let you say your piece, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. We like to do that. We need to throw an "I hate you" in there somewhere. Um, yeah,
Shout out Brett
like
McDonald.
there you go. I think ignorance is the word just because like coaches don't know the position, and like you said, some of them are either too scared to venture out to learn, or yeah, they don't want to venture out to learn. But it's kind of two mentalities. There's either the I don't know anything about it, so I am not touching it with a 10-foot pole. Or the other side I see is the coach does try to help, but the problem is they don't go out of their way to actually get proper information, and they base it off of what they think they know from when they played and stuff. So a lot of times the coaches are like, "Hey, stand up more. Hey, come further out." And that's kind of the gist of it. There's no understanding of the situational part of the position. I also think too, like we, I don't know, we've kind of gotten to a point, like you said, it is getting better, but the frustrating part about hockey and the mentality around goaltending is that every coach out there is like, our goalies need to be better, but then they don't offer any opportunity for them to get better, at least through themselves. It's always, we have to go find a private goalie coach. We have to go get our own goalie coaching, or even if there is goalie coach on staff, a lot of times they're there once a month or maybe once every 2 weeks, or even if they are there full time, they only get a goalie session once a month, or if that even, right? So I think the biggest thing is like coaches need to be comfortable getting out of their comfort zone and trying to learn a little bit about a position that they don't know anything about, to be able to give them the proper support. I do think it is a lot because they don't put in the work to understand goalies. And again, like you said, that is a slight shift that's happening, but we do need to do a better job of it for sure. So now, why am I wrong?
After you've explained it, I understand why you utilize that word. I don't
Yeah,
think in my mind, and I think in today's state of the game, um, that ignorance can really be the describing word to me anymore. It makes sense for like
fair.
when you and I played, because goaltending, or at least the art of goaltending, was still in its infancy stage. Ironic that I'm holding a baby in this instance. Uh, but I think in kind of the stage of the game, or the state of the game that it's in now, I don't think ignorance can really be utilized anymore. There's no reason for coaches to be ignorant of the fact that they have to that they have to be a participating factor in developing their goalies as well. Everybody knows that there are two goalies on a hockey team, right? Everybody knows that there is goaltending development out there. There's a lot of it, yes, and so I'll give them that. It can be overwhelming, and if you don't know where to look, then yeah, you're gonna it's gonna be daunting, and you're just gonna kind of want to shut down from it. But there is no reason for a coach in this day and age to say, I don't know anything about goaltending, so I'm just not going to deal with it. I don't
Yeah,
know anything about playing defense. I don't know anything about playing forward, but I still take the time to understand the systems, because that's how it can help me be a goalie, because I have to be able to read those plays that's happening in my own end. Because
yeah,
team like the box plus one isn't exclusive to just my team. It's every team that utilizes that strategy, or that structure, or whatever you want to call it. There's just absolutely no reason for ignorance to be a reason for coaches not to work, to work their goaltenders anymore.
yeah. So I totally agree with that. Like, I do agree that ignorance is the reason, but it shouldn't be an excuse. Like, I do fully agree that there is a lot of resources out there. You don't have to go buy a 10-part VHS tape to learn about, making a skate save anymore or whatever the case is, right? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I do think there needs to be more onus on trying to get better, and I don't think the ignorance is an excuse anymore, but I do think it is the reason. I think
Mm.
that most coaches are not helping their goalies as much.
And
Um,
like, sorry, just again, like I want to
yeah,
reiterate, like earlier, like we're not asking these guys to, come up with a full practice plan geared towards goaltending. We're not asking them to do the drills that we did in this camp that we just had the last week. We're because teams will have their specialized coaches. They have their defensive coach, they have their power play coach, they have their penalty coach, so on and so forth. So then on top of that, you'll have your goalie coach. But then you will have those practices where kind of all of those things kind of have to incorporate together, or at least you're doing your systems and whatever else. So that's what we're saying in that instance. And then again, that's what we talked about, having goalie friendly practices earlier in the pod that I soloed on. That's effectively is what you're saying, is that when you're developing a practice plan, coaches, you have to have your goaltender in mind as well, saying, yeah, this is going to be good for a forward and defense, but is this going to be good for a goaltender as well? Because I think the mindset needs to shift as well. As like when we're doing end zone stuff or flow drills or system drills or whatever, okay, that's also going to impact our goaltenders, because their team, the other team that you're going to be playing against, whatever team that may be, is going to be doing that exact same thing to your guy. They're
yeah,
practicing that exact same thing. So that focus needs to shift.
yeah, and that brings up a good point. So building off of that, now that I think about it, if we can learn to look for things about tracking, if we can learn to look for things about skating, and if we
Mm-hmm.
can learn to look for things about just general setup like hands, shoulders, knee bend, stuff like that, um, and then that combined with if we can tailor better practices to help our goalies, which in my opinion also helps our players. So if we have more uh, game realistic situations, so whether it's small area games, whether it's shots where there's net drives or traffic where you play out rebounds, stuff like that. If we can have more of that and more understanding about just the bare basics of tracking, skating, and just kind of general save execution, then at least, you can have that bug in their ear to be like, hey, your hands are low today, get them up. Hey, you're not
Yeah.
tracking a puck today, track a puck. And hey, our practice is giving you game like situations that you can actually get better at game like situations. So in a game, you will be better. I think if we can hit those basics, golden. That's all we ask.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll
All
have
right.
to bring back Ethan Martin's Pool, former guest of the pod and True North goaltending instructor, and kind of ask him how he structures his practices and whether he does have that in mind, because he is a goalie coach, right? But and we talked already about in the episode that he did, kind of his mindset, and being a coach and being a goalie coach and all that. So we'll definitely have to bring him back on and just kind of talk to him about that.
Yeah, and he's one that I've reached out to already. I've talked to him about that. Eventually, once the chaos of the start of the season kind of dies down and we get into a little bit of a better flow, um, I do want to start including like practice drills, like team practice drills on our drills page that we have, as well as like team practice plans that are also goalie friendly. So we can start putting that out into the world too.
Yeah.
So that's something that, you know, within the next year we'll probably see start to get rolled out at some point. So over the next couple months, I want to work with him on getting some of that stuff out as well. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully, we can maybe start to kind of change the narrative a little bit or help speed things up on that shift that we're seeing. And I think that'll be good as well. Anything else on that or? you want to hop to the next one?
No, I think it'll translate nicely, or kind of what we're talking about here will kind of translating nicely into our next one here from Rick K. With talking about goalie coaching and youth sports. I feel it often goes to the sidelines between periods. See, often they are neglected coaching moments of a game, especially in younger age groups. Talking point about intermission talks to goalies. Um, that one's kind of a hit or miss kind of deal. I know definitely with my junior teams, I would sometimes have goalies that just didn't want to talk to me between periods at all, which is totally fine. Um, the thing is, with that, um, I would say between games, like you kind of have to you kind of have to step back a little bit because you know your athlete is already being overloaded enough in the game, and so if you talk to them between every period and say, "Hey, here's what you did great, here's what you did wrong," okay, they're focusing on that a lot. When my dad coached me, he always says like, "What's one thing that you want to accomplish in the game?" And if I said like my skating or my tracking or making a save or getting stick to the corner, whatever that may be. And that was kind of my one thing that I really wanted to accomplish, throughout the game, because it can be detrimental if you're pulling the goalie aside every period and you're saying, "Hey, here's what you did right. I like what you did this and this, and oh, here's what you did wrong, this and that," right? And then they don't really have a time to recuperate in between that period, because that's what that time is really meant for, is just taking a break for a second to get back out there. Especially for goalies when we're playing the full 60 minutes, depending on what age level that you're at. Um, so I honestly think for this in particular, um, you gotta there's a time and a place for it, I guess was what I'm trying to say. I'm all for goalie coaching on having a goalie coach on every single team, and I've spoken about that many times throughout pod. But yeah, for something like this, I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't disagree, but
Yeah,
I don't agree with it either.
yeah. A lot of goalies I know don't like the intermission chats as well. That being said, though, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Is that because we are trained from a young age to be used to not being talked to at intermission? Like, do you think that's why every goalie out there doesn't like to do it when they get to that higher level? Like, what do you think? Do you think if it was more normal to be talked to at intermission, that people like goalies would actually like that more? Like, what do you think?
I
Because like,
don't. I,
yeah, I don't know about that. Like, that's something that I was thinking of when I saw this comment. I'm just like, you know what? Is that why we are all conditioned to not want to be talked to at intermission, because we're just so used to not being talked to at intermission? Like, I don't know. Because by the time
I
you
well,
actually get to the level where you have a goalie coach that could actually talk to you at intermission, you've probably gone through 10, 12, 15 years of working through higher levels of nobody talking to you.
yeah. I suppose I suppose for myself, like I'm consider myself lucky because my dad was my coach. Um, so we would always kind of chat somewhat in between intermissions. Like I kind of didn't really have an option in that instance. Um, but I suppose for everybody else, maybe. Um, I don't know if I can definitively say that that's the reason. I know that I've had some goalies when I coached in juniors. They would say it's like, look, I just want to stay focused. I want to stay in the moment. I don't want any distractions, and I don't want to talk about kind of what happened in the last period, because I don't want that on my conscience. Where I would have other goalies, or sometimes I would still chat with the goalies between intermissions, but I would just kind of fine tune certain things. Hey, here's what I'm seeing out there. This is what we need to do to correct that, and I leave it at that. I wouldn't say here's what you did right, here's what you did wrong, blah 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 blah. So like, hey, there's this one thing that I noticed. We got to clean that out because this is where we're getting beat. This is how it's going to help the team, and then leave it at that. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just depend. I mean, like goalies are interesting creatures in themselves already, and we're so used to being on our own kind of little bubble. So I mean, I guess maybe, but I can't say definitively for sure.
Yeah, me neither. I'm just curious on that because you look at players, and players are so used to getting feedback as soon as they get off of the ice almost every time after a shift, right? Like a lot of times the coach is there. Hey, in this instance, they get the whiteboard out, they're X and Oing up, and players are just used to that, and they're getting that throughout the game. Like you never really hear about a player that says, "Hey, coach, don't talk to me during the game. I don't want to hear it." Right? So
Yeah,
that's why I'm kind of curious as to if it was more the norm, would goalies be a little more interested in that chat? I do think I totally agree with you. If it is to happen, it's got to kind of be a little bit more simple.
yeah.
Um, like, I don't know. I know obviously players deal with the mental side of things too, but I don't know what it is about goaltending, but goalies seem to just get into their own head a little bit more and think a lot more
Well,
than they need to. But
I'll say this. I think it's more so because we play an entirely different game compared to what the forwards and defense play.
yeah,
Right? We play a
reactionary style.
reactionary position
Yeah,
versus the players. They play a, I don't want to say proactive. That's not the word that I'm looking for, but they
more
play a more
systemized.
systemized. Yeah, that's a good word. They play a more systemized game. We play a reactionary game. So the cognitive side of it is completely different when it comes to that, which is
Yeah,
probably why, for players and defenses be like, hey, this is what we have to do, XYZ, versus goalies where it's like, no, we need to stay focused and be prepared for that next shot, that goldfish mentality that you were talking about, right? So maybe
yeah,
that's why, because we play like we're playing the same game, but we're playing it two different ways, which is the way it
yeah.
should be.
Yeah, and just a quick note before we move on, because I know there is the mention of just goalie coaching in youth sports, often going to the sidelines. I do think the big shift that we need in the sport for our position is just more resources for coaches and more coaches willing to accept those resources for that basic level, like we kind of talked about before. Like you said, ideally we'd like to have a goalie coach on every single team. Now, that doesn't have to be a high level goalie coach like the NHL teams and WHL teams and whatever other level get. But if you have somebody on staff that can at least go through the basics and at least can pinpoint a couple areas of improvement needed for goalies and just be able to actually have a conversation with goalies, I think that in general would help just you know, goalie coaching and youth hockey, and just kind of our younger goalies as a whole.
Again, I'll tell you you're
So,
wrong. There needs to be a goalie culture on every single team. Needs to happen now. Uh, um,
okay, realistically, I know you're over in fantasy land over there, but
um, yeah. Okay. Fine. No, I think again, like for the resources part of it, um, I don't know if we need more resources. I mean, like obviously more resources the better, but I think there needs to be a kind of designated resource. I guess
yeah,
that's the
organizational resources. How's that? Like, oh, yeah,
organized resources, I suppose, to say, hey, here's what a parent coach can receive in order to do what it is that they're doing. And that's where USA Hockey is really striving with that, is because there's more organized resources when it comes to that, more structured resources when it comes to that. versus again we've talked dirty about them before with Hockey Alberta and Hockey Canada, not doing that. But again, we are starting to see that shift to an extent. But again, with it being hockey in Canada, it's still kind of being gate kept a little bit.
Yeah. All right. I think we can move on to the next point here. I think this will be our last one because we have one more at the end, but I think that
Well, here
might be a
what
topic for. Well, I was gonna say I think that might be a topic for a half episode or a whole episode on its own. That last
well
one.
I was like I was just gonna say that we could probably just touch on it quickly.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
just with this one from David M, would love to learn more about what to expect coming into your draft year, pass for goalies, late bloomers, feedback advantages, different advantages of the different leagues. I don't know everything about the different leagues that David's mentioning to us here. I know of some of them, not a lot of them, but I think just kind of what to expect coming into your draft year is just the biggest thing to note that there's no guarantee that you're going to get drafted. There is the development should stay the same. Again, I can't say for certain because I've never been drafted anywhere. Um, but I don't. For me, I would say the development just doesn't stay or just stays the same because I think if you put too much time or focus into it, then it can get messy and can potentially hurt your chances. Pass for late bloomers. Uh, for goalies and late bloomers, I would just like there are definitely a lot of different paths out there, whether it be through mainstream hockey or through non-mainstream hockey. Again, Nathan might not like this comment I'm about to say, but like you have these outlawed tier two junior leagues, which I know that don't sit well with some people, but for me, I think those are semi decent options to have. It is not going to be a straight line to the wherever it is that you want to end up in a pro fashion, but I think it is an option for you in that regard. But it can't be considered gospel. Again, I know I know there's stuff with that. I'm just saying I've been in that league. We've sent some kids off to some good places. And then yeah, advantages and different advantages of different leagues. I think we would probably maybe want to bring on a scout or something for that because I can't say for certain.
Yeah, yeah, that's something I think if we really dove into that comment would be better suited for probably its own episode. One thing I will say, the only thing that really bugs me about the tier 2 junior teams, and it's not every program, like some of them are good, it's mostly just the ones that are strictly cash grabs. Like they're pulling
Yeah,
kids from Europe saying, "Hey, you can come play junior in Canada and it's going to cost you $22,000. Oh, by the way, our roster has 8 goalies on it." And it's like,
yeah,
well, like so those ones bug me.
sure.
But that's not all of them. But yeah, we can dive into that more I think on its own episode. We'll do our last one here with or I guess from Jerry M, who I think is also Mr. Gammon 3YT from YouTube on the other side that we talked about last episode. I could be wrong on that, but just the way he was commenting and mentioning that he watched the video earlier, it kind of seems like it's the same one. I could be wrong, but he kind of mentioned a few things. I just condensed it into a little bit of a list. So intro for new goalie parents. When is a good time to start seeking private development? So kind of two different things, kind of similar. It is on my list to eventually kind of make like a little handbook for new goalie parents or something along those lines. I think the biggest thing when it comes to new goalie parents is really try and understand like which pieces of equipment are important. Like a lot of times parents go full out on the pads, full out on the glove and blocker, and then they go and get an Enemy 3 or a Bauer 930 or something like that on the helmet side. And that is the one thing I think you should prioritize first is the helmet. Make sure that it's appropriate for the level that your goalie is playing. And then don't skimp out on some of the extra stuff. Like I know some kids really hate the dangler. The thing with the dangler is if you tie it properly, it actually isn't that noisy. And it won't really get in your way as much as people say that does. To me, when a kid says their dangler gets in the way too much or makes too much noise, that just tells me that it's not tied properly. And you can tie it in a way to do that. I also like we've talked about this a little bit before, but I know some new parents might not think that knee pads are a necessity, but I do think they are. And we even had a question this week from one of our goalie parents from the camp who he's a new goalie. He's going into his first full year as a goalie, and he was asking about goalie skates, and we kind of gave him the answer that yeah, you want to get goalie skates as early as you possibly can. That being said, we understand like financial stuff and whatnot, like maybe wait till he grows out of this current pair of player skates if you can't afford the goalie skates right now, but they make a big difference in the movements around the net and stuff like that. So goalie skates are a big difference. As soon as you can get into them, get into them. You don't need the latest model or the flashiest stuff when you're starting out. Find something used on marketplace. As they get better, you can get better stuff, but don't skimp out on the helmet. The other thing too is you have to understand that it's a lonely position both for the goalies and the parents. Um, there there's a lot of gross things that happen in minor hockey as a whole, but it seems there's some situations where the goalies kind of get even more of that. Um, like I don't know, there's always parents kind of crap talking other like the goalies on the team or whatever and stuff like that. People don't understand that there isn't very much support for goalies. So if you are a new goalie parent, you'll learn that real quick, but understand that your kid's in a position that isn't very well supported, and they they might struggle with that mentally as well as their game, just because they don't get the resources that other players get, and they kind of fall behind a little bit in their development. um and yeah, I don't know if you have anything you want to add for new goalie parents before we kind of dive into the private development.
Well, as a future new goalie parent, um, I
I
don't
hope I
know.
don't
I
get there, but
guess um, yeah, I mean, definitely when it comes to the equipment side of things, you don't want to skip out on the helmet. I would even say you don't really want to skip out on the chest protector either.
yeah.
Definitely, yeah, definitely the skates. I understand the skates. Um, Definitely for like a first year goalie, but if get through that first year and if they decide that they want to continue, then yeah, then they're going to need to upgrade essentially to proper goalie skates. Um, but I think beyond that, it's more so just about just wanting to just make sure that they're going to enjoy the position first over anything. For me, I wouldn't really worry about development until maybe their second year, their third year, what have you. For right now, I would say it's just understanding what the position entails, kind of what it's about, before getting into any more of the nitty gritty type stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, like potential new goalie parent 5 years down the line, 6 years, 7 years down the line, whatever. Um, but that would be just the thing for me. It's just like I would just want to put her in hockey and just make sure that she enjoys it first before going all out when it comes to doing all that stuff. But yeah, you want to definitely make sure that that your kid is well protected in the noggin, in the chest, and in other areas before stepping on the ice.
Yeah. And I would suggest if they do dive in and they enjoy it and they take it seriously and they want to, you know, pursue it as, a high level if they are interested, I do think um getting in touch with like a sports psychologist is another thing that I think kind of gets, you know, not really put in the spotlight as much as it should. Like I know of a few goalies that were fantastic goalies, and I hear that they went back to player, and it saddens me because they were fantastic, but they just didn't have the mental skill set or tools to be able to handle the unique problems, I guess, that come with the position, or the, you know I don't know, the kind of pressure, I guess, the pressure and the outside noise and the lack of support and the isolation and kind of some of that stuff that comes with the position. Like it is probably one of the hardest positions in sports if you think of the expectations versus the support that goalies get. I feel like there's probably very little um, other positions in sports out there that is so skewed like it is in goaltending. We are expected to do a lot and not given very much to support those expectations. So that's something to be aware of too.
Yeah, I agreed on that. I think just spending that first year or so just getting an understanding of what this position entails before spending any more dollars into the position, because it is an investment at the end of the day, right? So we want to make sure that it's going to be something that's going to be a good fit for you and your athlete before really kind of diving into it. So I don't know if there's really like a list of accomplishments in one day, as Jerry had put it. I think it's more so just here's what to expect in your very, very first year as a goalie and as an athlete. And then here are the certain, for lack of a better term, I guess, milestones that you'll wanna hit before year
That
two or whatever.
that little side note in the brackets was me that added that it was on the list, on my list to accomplish one
Oh, okay. All right.
day. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All
But
right. Well, I apologize then, but
but yeah, so we can kind of dive in quickly into the second part of that, is like when is a good time to start seeking private development. Um, the business side of us at True North Goaltending is immediately and come to us and come train with us.
yeah,
But
exactly. Go nowhere else. Make the trip if you're from the States, or we have
yeah,
listeners
just
in what,
fly to
Singapore or whatever. So make the flight. Come train with us. Don't come with anybody else, and just you'll be fine.
yeah. But no, seriously, when it comes to private development, whether it's like semi-private sessions, whether it's goalie camps, whether it is a private session, whatever the case is, um, I would say the best time is once you know for sure that your kid wants to do this and
Yeah.
they're all in, they enjoy the position. And if it works for you, both financially and time wise, and if you have a good provider somewhere around you, and there's going to be different, I guess, needs as your kid goes through the levels, and what they might get out of private development when they're 8 is going to be different from what they get at 14. And so you might change providers as you go, or the approach might change. Like you might start with just doing like goalie camps and then maybe move to semi privates, then maybe move to privates or whatever the case is. But I do think that you want to wait until they seem to for sure want to dive full into being a goalie. I wouldn't do it any time before that while they're feeling it out, unless you're maybe going to like a try goalie event or maybe a, kind of just fun private development skate. Something not too serious. But I will say, from a goalie coach's perspective, there's nothing that bugs us more than running an hour-long session with a kid that is just there because mom and dad told them to be there. Um, so do us a favor and wait until they're ready to make that commitment. Like, if they're at the point that they love the position so much that they want to do whatever they can to get better and they're willing to learn and all of that stuff, to me, that's the right time to start looking. And before that, kind of let them figure it out a little bit on their own and see from there. That's just kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah. Um, no, I agree with you saying that, once when you or your athlete have agreed or have come to the understanding that this is something that you want to invest your time and dollars into, then yeah, absolutely. You know, start looking around. Um, Again, you wanna make sure that you're not overdoing it as well too. Um, but yeah, I think that's definitely just the answer to that specifically part of it. It's just, yeah, when you know that you want to put the time and energy into it, then that's when it's a
Yeah.
good time to seek it.
I do think if you have that conversation with your athlete and you say, do you love this enough that you're willing to get through the not fun parts, right? Like, we had a lot of kids this week at our camp that were not happy with the amount of skating that we did during the week. And there were some kids that were asking for more skating,
Yeah,
right? So the skating part isn't fun, but it's an important part of the position. And if you have a goalie that either enjoys or at least can tolerate that, to because of the greater goal, like they can see the forest through the trees, and they're okay with getting through those not so fun parts and little tougher parts about the position, then to me, I think that's a great time. And that's when you should really start looking for that development.
yeah.
um but
I would just again say, just if it's something that you want to invest yourself into, then yeah, that's it. Um, yeah, I got
you
nothing
want to
else on that.
Yeah, you want to take us home then, because I think that was about all we have for today.
Yeah, well, I am certainly glad to be back on the pod. And it's going to be a fun time throughout this year. We're going to have to do another NHL goalies prediction episode because the
Oh my
last
god,
one went
no.
so well.
Yeah, I don't even want to acknowledge that that episode exists. It
All
shows
right,
how
well,
much NHL hockey I watch, which is very little. So
fair enough. All right, well, we'll leave it at that, goalies.
we might,
So
though,
that
just for
is
fun.
fair enough. All right, goalies. Well, that is another edition of the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending in the books. If you are watching over on the YouTube side of things, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment about maybe what you liked about this episode today, or if you have any other further questions for us that we can answer, we will definitely be happy to do that. Make sure you hit that share button as well, because the more people that we are able to bring to our little community, the better. If you are listening on the podcast side of things, whether that be on Apple, iHeart, or Spotify, or whatever it is that you get your podcast, make sure you hit that follow button and that share button, because again, same deal. The more goalies that we can bring together, the better. Make sure you guys follow us on our social media platforms, all at True North Goaltending, except on Instagram because we like to be different. That one is YEG Goalie Coach. You can follow myself on Instagram at MondayGC. go check out our website. Should be done here within the next little bit. I'm putting that out there now, so Nathan has the incentive to get it done by September 1st, 2025. Beyond beyond that, yeah, nothing else. Glad to be back. Hopefully everybody had a great summer, and hopefully everybody's having a fun off-season training. And then good luck in evaluations that are expected to be happening sometime in the next little bit. Until then, that is another edition of the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. Make some saves, goalies. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.